Hey guys, Alex here with Rapid Fire Rundown. Today, we're going to be discussing the Tisas Raider, the Colt M45A1 clone made by Tisas, and my overall impressions of it after a couple hundred rounds. First of all, I do have a overview video that talks about the significance of this gun and why it is so exciting, why I purchased it as well. This video is going to be really mostly about the shooting experience of the firearm and the experience I've had over the past couple hundred rounds. Full disclosure, I do not have many rounds on this gun. I'm thinking between 2 and 300. Brought a lot of people to the range to have some fun the other day, which I'll show some B-roll of, and everyone got their chance to shoot it. I got the chance to shoot it a lot, and it held up pretty fantastically, which we'll get to, but this isn't going to be a 10,000 round review. I will have a probably a 2 to 5,000 round review once that does come up in the next couple months, as well as I do have a friend that actually owns this handgun as well that does have about a K through it, and they haven't had any issues, which I'll expand upon. But this isn't a extremely long-term review. This is just my overall shooting impressions that I've had with this firearm. So, normal disclaimers. Like this video if you enjoy the video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content similar to this. And let's get right into the video. The Tisas Raider. This gun has been phenomenal. The Lockup, which is, of course, the first thing 1911 snobs are always going to be concerned about. The barrel to bushing fit, the slide to frame fit, just the overall lockup of the firearm is phenomenal. You hear it all the time, but 1911s, good 1911s, feel like they're on ball bearings. My Colt to Gold Cup national match in the other room has a phenomenal trigger and a great finish, and it's a good gun, but even that doesn't feel as good as this Tisas for whatever reason. I don't know why. Tisas is, first of all, most of their components are forged, which is a tall ask for a $500 gun, but for whatever reason, the slide reciprocation feels kind of absurdly smooth. Way smoother than it should for a $400 gun and more than my $1,500 Colt Gold Cup. I have an Alchemy coming in that I'm assuming is just going to blow it out of the water, but this is $400 to $500, guys, and this has no business being this smooth. The slide serrations have been great. The irons have been excellent. I wish there was a dot cut on it, and I could do that in the future, but I'm kind of content with keeping it in spirit of the old or the classic Colt M45A1 look. Down to the controls. The safety is ambi. Safety is extremely positive, more positive than my Colt actually. That's not very fair. The Colt has little nubs because it's a classic 1911 design, but regardless, the safety is very nice. The trigger. The trigger is not as nice as my Colt, but still breaks in at, if I were to guess, probably 4 or so pounds. It's significantly better than any striker fire trigger on the market. Just not as good as really highly tuned 1911 triggers. And I'm going to give you guys what that looks like up close. So let's defeat the wall of the trigger. Right there, the wall is taken up, and now I'm just going to add a little bit more pressure. That's the break. Obviously, you're not going to be able to feel what the trigger feels like through the camera, but do understand that it is a perfectly adequate 1911 trigger. It's just not going to blow you away. For more controls, the mag release is a little bit stiff, but I feel like a lot of 1911 mag releases are kind of hard to actuate. It is reversible. If you are a weird lefty, you can just use your middle finger or index finger, like a lot of people do. I use my thumb because I was born with the right hands. It's perfectly adequate. It's just nothing special. The front does not have front strap checkering. The rear does have the kind of Colt Gold Cup line checkering that you'd see on the top of slides as well, but the front doesn't have that checkering at all. So I've instead put a piece of not even hockey tape or gun tape, but actually sandpaper that you put on stairs. So it is stupidly aggressive, but it keeps the gun in my hand. Speaking of aggressive, the grips are decent. I'm the kind of person that really prefers extremely aggressive grips because I want the gun to stay in my hands. And these grips are pretty aggressive, and more aggressive than most people would even prefer, to be honest with you. I just really like aggressive grips. The old TRP grips that were a thing of sandpaper, best grips ever, because especially when you're wearing gloves, they just glue into your hands. I did wear gloves yesterday for a small amount because it was ludicrously cold out, and just to check how the weapon would do with gloves as well. That's important. And I found that the gloves ate into the grip tape and the grips, and it made it an extremely stable shooting platform. Shooting, for those of you that don't know, shooting with gloves is generally better than shooting without gloves. You want to shoot without gloves a lot because that's how you're normally carrying your gun without gloves on. But when you shoot with gloves, if you're using pigs or mechanics or whatever, and your gun has some aggression, you'll see that for whatever reason, just because of the material of the glove, I find my recoil control with gloves is significantly better. And that's not a knock at my hands or people's hands. That's just, hey, you're adding fabric to this sandpaper material and it makes it incredibly stable. So I found that that works incredibly well with these grips. And realistically, if you're in the Marine Corps carrying a Colt M45A1, you probably are going to have gloves with you and or on at all times. So just a small note, gloves worked perfectly fine. Now, the next part of the video is just describing the shooting experience of this gun. It shot phenomenally, way better than it should. I shot in my couple hundred rounds, 200, 300, 400 rounds. The only malfunctions I had was last round hold open for magazines. Now, it's also important to remember that in 10, 20 degree weather with guns like, especially like a 1911, which requires a lot of lube and requires a lot of care, last round hold open, I find, is one of the most frequent malfunctions I see on my firearms. My 226 never malfunctions, ever. I was actually talking about it yesterday, but I took it out yesterday, and I think because of it was being 10-degree weather and not shooting full power ammo, I actually had a couple malfunctions with it, like last round hold open. Firearms really don't like holding open, in my perception, when it is 10 degrees outside, especially when they're not super well lubed and they're not taken care of that well. So that is the only malfunction I had with this gun. I didn't encounter any failure to feeds. I didn't encounter any stovepipes, which, if you know the 1911 platform, is actually pretty common. In 1911, I'd say its most frequent malfunction is going to be stovepipes and failure to feeds, just because of the mag geometry and the feeding ramp and how we've kind of departed from the original John Moses Browning design. But this gun has held up phenomenally. You can see I have carbon all over the front and my light. I did go through and clean this gun, and I was able to remove a lot of that carbon. So the Cerakote is holding up great, and the Cerakote also doesn't scrape off when I'm trying to clean it. Back to the shooting experience. For whatever reason, this shoots phenomenal, and I think that's in large part due to the rail and the X300. If you watched my USP video, you know that my biggest problem with the USP was the recoil. And that is in some part to the USP and in some part to the fact that I don't have massive X300 hanging up off the side of it. Now, my EDC firearms, I always prefer to have lights on basically every gun I have, especially an EDC gun. Now, because I'm able to mount a massive X300 and there is that heavy Picatinny rail that isn't as heavy as the original Colt M45A1, but still adds some weight to it, I found that the recoil just not only went up a little bit less than like my Colt Gold Cup national match, but also returned to that original point of aim, point of impact incredibly quickly. That's a massive bonus, guys. Shooting isn't just about shooting accurately, it's about shooting accurately with speed, right? If you can't shoot, if you can shoot precise but not fast, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. If you can shoot fast but not precise, you're also doing yourself a disservice. You need to be both. This gun allows me to shoot incredibly quick, to the point where I shoot this a lot better than most of the 1911s I've ever handled. My Dan Wesson, my Colt Gold Cup National Match, my friend's TRP, I shoot this gun better. I think that's in large part due to the weight. The Colt M45A1 had a very cool dual recoil system. This just has a standard like bushing type system. Same with the USP. The USP also had a dual recoil system. Now, throughout this video, you've seen some videos go on the screen of my shooting experience with it. You be the judge, right? Look at those clips and you tell me that this looks like a 45 ACP gun. I'm not the best shooter on the planet, but as you can see, the weapon just rises a small amount and goes right back on target. And that extends to my friends as well, my friends that have very little shooting experience. They shot this gun and said this was in large part the most fun gun and their favorite gun of the day. My girlfriend is 100 pounds. Said she liked shooting this a lot better than most of the other guns we had there yesterday, including comped Glocks and 9mm and 22. Okay.
You got this.
So that says a lot,
Go.
especially from also a bushing 1911, no compensator, nothing crazy going on. This gun has been phenomenal. Um, I really can't recommend it enough from my perception from yesterday. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're itching for a Colt M45A1. Last notes before we get into some negatives. Um, it fed from every single mag. In my original video, I said that these magazines may not be the best from what I've read online. These mags were flawless yesterday. I also recommend the Tenacor Malice Soul holster. This holster fits this gun perfectly. The retention is great if you tighten it. This gun is going to fall out if I let it right now. But that's just because it needs to be a little bit tightened. And also, once it's in your waistband, the gun is getting compressed against your skin, so you don't need crazy high retention because once again it's being compressed against your body. But the Malice Soul and other 1911 with X300 holsters do fit this gun perfectly. You shouldn't have any fitment issues there, like my Dan Wesson had, for example, right? Less bearers have different size frames, right? Some companies just have different quirks. This has no such quirk. Just put it in a 1911 holster with an X300, like let's say a TRP, and it should work perfectly fine. All right, so those are all the good things I have to say about the M45A1. Before we get into the next part of the video, I give it my 100% recommendation. I will be giving you guys more reviews once I get this to about 5,000 rounds, 10,000 rounds. I like to keep you guys updated, and I don't anticipate any issues except for what I'm about to get in. This morning, when I wanted to make my video, I logged onto Reddit on the 1911 subreddit. It says that there is a recall on Tisas guns. Not every gun's perfect, guys. This gun is actually being recalled by Tisas. The reason for that is apparently, which by the way, I carry this in my waistband, so that's a little bit spooky, but apparently the hammer can actually drop without trigger press. That's obviously massive. You do not want to carry this gun in a duty capacity with that issue for the time being. You also don't want to carry it in an appendix holster like me and lose the ability to create children. Kind of spooky that I've been carrying this for the past week on and off, but yeah, don't carry your Tisas until they fix this issue. It's important to note that every gun company on the planet, to my knowledge, has had these issues. Glock guns explode. I love Glock. Glocks exploded. P320s still discharged to this day. I don't care what you SIG fanboys think. There's something wrong with the P320 platform. I'll make a video on that at some point. AR-15s have issues all the time. Ammunition like Norma. Norma has had 1 million recalls. Even the most quality companies have recalls. Just the nature of the beast, guys. When you're making 10,000 or 1 million guns, there are going to be some that have some issues. So I hold this against Tisas, right? I hold this as kind of spooky, and I wouldn't recommend this gun in a duty capacity or a concealed carry capacity until these issues are fixed, and apparently new lot numbers are hopefully perfectly fine, but that's a big detractor. However, I judge a company based on their ability to fix an issue rather than the mistakes that they make. I judge their mistakes, but it's much more important to see how they respond to those mistakes rather than just denounce the entire company. Dan Wesson. Oh boy, you guys hated that video. I'll make a video at some point just ripping through all your comments because there's a lot of dumb people in that comment section. But Dan Wesson, I gave them 2 opportunities to fix their gun. They sent me a broken gun, I sent it back. They sent me a broken gun, I sent it back. They sent me a broken gun, I sold it. That is a sample size of 3. This is a sample size of 1, and it's been great. However, now there's a hammer issue, so I'm sending it back to them to get it fixed. If they fix it, then that's a sample size of 2, and I consider that a win. I consider that they resolved their issue, and like I said, it's how people fix their issues rather than the issues they make. But with my sample size of 1 so far, if you take out this hammer issue, which by the way I haven't experienced yet, I haven't seen any issues with this gun has been fucking great. And I'd recommend it for anyone that wants to get into the 1911 field. 1911s are a boutique platform. Probably the most religious platform. People love the 1911, as well as one of the most boutique, one of the most complicated, one of the most elitist platforms you can get into in the gun industry. But it's important to have guns on the lower end, like old Colts way back when, and new Tisas's and Springfield armories that are at a acceptable price point that new people can get into guns. All right, new people can get into the 1911 platform because as we move into the 21st century, we're moving to polymer pistols, and we don't want to do that. We want to stay with the 1911 steel pistols. So if you're trying to get into the 1911 platform and you want a jumping off point, you just want a quality gun that's cheap, 500 bucks. You can throw it down a ravine. I guess who cares? It's 450 bucks, and you just want to experience what the 1911 platform has to offer. Get this gun. If you are a elitist that loves your Alchemies and your Ed Browns and your Nighthawks, but you want a M45A1 clone that you can beat on, I'm going to be an asshole to this gun, guys. If you want a gun that you can beat on and just want to see what 500 bucks can give you as opposed to 5,000, this is a excellent choice, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. Once Tisas fixes this issue, I'll keep you guys updated. It should be about 30 days until I get this gun back. Hopefully everything will function perfectly then, and I'll be keeping an eye on forums to make sure there aren't any drop safety issues or hammer issues moving forward. This has been Alex with Rapid Fire Rundown. If you have any questions, comments, concerns on your Tisas, if you want additional recommendations, if you want to start a shit throwing fight in the comments like you guys did with the Dan Wesson, please comment down below. I love the entertainment. Stay real, guys. Stay safe out there. Have a good one.